I mean, dude, we used to see like baseball shrinks, right? So I'm not joking.
Like literally like a shrink?
Shrinks for sports.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
was a
interested. Tell me about this. This is Dustin Biegler and Marcus Kuhlman with another episode of Core Concepts here with Justin Ruggiano today. Justin, tell us a little bit about your background and what you do for any of those that might not know you.
Sure, yeah. I got out of Major League Baseball for 14 years back in 2017. And being a busybody that I am and just kind of always having to do something, I started a roofing company due to Hurricane Harvey. So I did it about a month after I retired. I retired in July, the end of July, and I started the company September 1.
That was one of the things I really wanted to ask you was how do you go from being a Major League Baseball player to, you know, getting into roofing? Because like every kid grows up wanting to be a professional athlete, and I don't hear like a lot of kids being like, hey, I want to grow up and be a roofer. So like, tell me about that.
Man, I fell into it, honestly. Long story short is we were going down to Rockport for a fishing trip the weekend of Hurricane Harvey. And I was with a buddy of mine who had been in construction. He had done, you know, multifamily commercial related projects for the last 12 to 15 years. And, well, that trip, we ended up going down there regardless, knowing that the town was decimated. And, we got to a address that I was given by my family, my brother-in-law actually, and it was completely destroyed. And at that moment, we knew that we could service that area and help the people of Rockport, Texas, at that, you know, by the next day. So we had the resources, and I'm kind of putting all this together in my head as, oh man, this town's really messed up, and you know, how can I be of service to them to. If I'm really going to do this, I got to start a new business and cover myself with insurance. So I flew back up to Dallas right away and started the company and got insured, and we went back to work, you know, for like the next 17 weeks straight.
Without previous knowledge, really, of the roofing industry?
No, my partner did.
Okay.
Yeah, but me, I had zero. You know, I'd been
This
in a
is
bubble.
in 2008?
17.
17?
Yeah.
Okay. So fill us in just like a little bit about like maybe like starting at the beginning, how you grew up, you know, maybe how you got into Major League Baseball, right? Like what was that a dream of yours? At what age did you decide it? And I mean, when you first got that idea of like I could be in the major leagues, did it seem like a dream to you, or like an unattainable dream, I should say, or did you really think like it could be done at the time?
So my parents told me, and I kind of remember vaguely, that when I was in third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, we'd always, you know, you write out, what do you want to be when you grow up? Mm-hmm. Mine, from day one, due to my dad, basically just kind of pushing baseball on me and teaching me about the game, it was always baseball. I want to be a Major League Baseball player. You know, I was into it. I was collecting cards. I was playing pickup games. And that, you know, obviously over time you play in the levels. You play Little League, you play Pony, you play high school. And it wasn't until probably my senior season of high school that I was like, this is too good to just stop now. So
when did you realize you were good? That's when you realized like I have something.
No, I think I was still insecure then. I was in high school. So I was just hoping I was good enough to keep playing.
Right.
Like to go to like a small school.
Maybe I'll get a scholarship.
Yeah, or even walk on, you know. Like
Right.
I was never a stud. Like at no point in my career can I say, oh my God, he's the guy. You know, I was never that. I was never the blue chipper. You know, he's getting drafted out of high school.
Yep.
I was always I fit in well to a team, and I had a really good role that I was good at usually, but I would get overlooked by other guys all the time. But so I got out of high school, and luckily I played in a tournament that got me a scholarship to a JUCO out of Oklahoma called Seminole, Oklahoma.
Okay.
And left 6 hours from Austin, which was the town I grew up in, to Seminole, Oklahoma, that had like 2 stoplights and a Carl's Jr. and a Brahms, and that was it. So I was shell shocked a little bit, but long story short, got through JUCO, did 2 years of JUCO, and then went to A&M, and that's a whole other story that takes too long to even discuss how I got there. But I was working with the construction company in Kerrville the day that I signed with A&M, and that's because A&M had a center fielder who had signed that day with the Marlins, and he was gone. And so that's kind of, when I got to A&M, that's when I started realizing, I'd been kind of working on my physical strengths and speed, and all of a sudden I was like, man, I'm at a D1 school right now. Like, I was kind of shell-shocked at first, but when I started playing well, and it started from the game one, I hit a walk-off home run game one.
Nice.
And then, fast forward to 2 years later, and I get us into the super regionals against the best team in the country by hitting a grand slam against Rice, and that took A&M to their first super regional in 5-6 years. So that's when I started realizing, man, this is something I could keep doing, hopefully. Never did I think I was going to be the golden boy,
right?
Ponied all the way up to the big leagues right away. And it took a while for
So let's tie that back into maybe your roofing career. So what are your current, dreams and aspirations for your roofing company? Like, where do you want to go with it? Where do you want to end up with it? What do you think's possible right now for you?
I want to build a business in the Dallas area that I get to be home with my family. And I want to do things the right way, honorable, with integrity, with all the characteristics that it takes to make a quality big league player who not just gets the big leagues, but sticks, that last. Because I'm sure that you guys now in your past, you've seen many companies that start and 3 years later they fizzle out. It's the same in
All
baseball.
the time.
It's the same in baseball.
Yeah. What's the percentage of players that, try out for, or, want to make it to the major leagues and actually make it?
Oh my goodness.
It's got to be
0.05, 0.02. I don't know. I mean, it's really, when you break it down that way, and I've seen numbers on Facebook and, certain slim to none.
Yeah, it's got to be a fraction of a percent, right?
It is, yeah.
And
0.01% maybe.
Entrepreneurship, I think, for people is, much the same way, is that, a lot of people, try it and it may not work out for them, particularly in roofing. It's a little bit of a low barrier of entry, and a lot of people get into it and might not have the resources to excel to that next level, right?
Yeah. There's a saying in baseball that, once you get to the pros in general, pros being rookie ball, AAA, big leagues, once you get there, it's easy to get to the big leagues, but it's hard to stay. It's hard to stick, because to stick in the big leagues, you got to have a niche. You got to find your niche. You got to perfect it. Like, I knew my niche in the big leagues was going to be a fourth outfielder, start sometimes for months at a time, maybe even seasons at a time, hit lefties really well. That was my big league niche. Everyone knew that if there's a left-handed pitcher starting, I was going to bat 3 or 4 hole. Like, I was going to be in the middle of the lineup. Now, it's the same for, any kind of business. You've got to separate yourself from maybe the general population of your business, whatever it is that you're in, roofing or windows or selling insurance, and differentiate yourself from other companies. And so as I'm 3 years into my roofing career, I'm constantly thinking about, stuff that Apple Roofing excels at, branding, production. Marcus, I talked about that. The production line is so important. I mean, all that stuff is exactly how baseball was. I just now have to understand and recognize how to relate it to business now. And I'm 3 years into this thing. Things are going well. I'm just trying to make sure that we grow at the right speed and turn into something like you guys have right now.
Yeah, I think you said something like that we really relate to, and I think relates to a lot of businesses, that you really need to find your niche, right? Find out what you're really good at and do that. Some of the thing that I think that we've found is, like, it's not sometimes what you do, it's what you don't do.
Yes.
You know, if you start doing things you're not good at, that's not a good experience for anybody. And ultimately, you know, that's what takes your business to the next level, is like being like phenomenal and standing out at what you do.
Yeah.
So
Can you, like, Justin, go back and, like, just kind of fill our audience in on, you know, the dedication you had to have when you were being a professional baseball player, and what that looked like from, you know, I guess being honest with yourself on, hey, I got to do this to stay focused, and how that ties into, you know, being dedicated to your business, not just having a job or making good money one year, right? It's, what do I have to do? Because it's always the next, right? When's
Yeah.
your next opportunity? Who's scouting me now? Where am I going next, right?
Yeah. You know, you get out of college and you still have that college lifestyle in you a little bit, right? So
Yep.
I hit the pro circuit like with a chip on my shoulder because I got drafted really low. So that always helps, right? A competitive chip,
Yep.
you know, whatever you want. You got to have something that motivates you daily to get up and grind it out, right? But, you know, we talked about processes. Processes didn't, the realization that I was a pro, a true pro, and this was my profession, didn't hit me until my first year in the big leagues, where I got to see other veteran guys and what they would do. And I learned so much from just observing, not talking, not asking too many questions as a rookie, but just observing what they did day in and day out. And, you know, that's something I've kind of adapted into the roofing industry is, you know, I want to lock down my process for whether it be a residential division or a commercial division or lead generations. I want to know everything about every aspect of my business, and then eventually, you know, you start taking areas that maybe I excel at, or you know, Ryan, my partner, excels at, and we figure out people within those divisions who can streamline our efforts and get this thing, you know, smooth sailing from, you know.
Yeah, who's a better third baseman?
Exactly.
Who's better at production, right? Who's better
Yeah.
center fielder, such as yourself, versus who's better at pitching or whatever.
And you know, when you first start and you're thrown into a storm situation, you make a lot of mistakes. You learn a lot. I've learned more from my mistakes than I have my successes. That's just the facts.
Tuition, right?
Yeah.
you don't learn anything from a success, really. Right?
I mean, hopefully you learn how to repeat it, but you learn, yeah, you're right. You just, when you screw something up, man, you can go back, and as long as you're real, I love what you said. You got to be real with yourself. And, you know, I'm sure both of y'all have had to do that, but you got to say, you know, for baseball, for instance, you know, my dream of being a everyday center fielder for 20 years and following Ken Griffey's footsteps just wasn't realistic. You know, I knew that I was kind of, odds were stacked against me from the get. And when I accepted the fact that, one, this is a job, okay, so I needed to, you know, set a process, and I was like a robot every day. I knew what I was doing from 2 o'clock to the game started at 7 o'clock. I accepted that process. Then all the other successes, failures, and in-betweens kind of fell into place because I had something to fall back on. You know, my process was locked in. But when I accepted all that, that's when I really stuck in the big leagues. Same as business, right? So the sooner I can figure out where I can put people where they will excel and keep them motivated, like you and I have talked about, I feel like that's when my company will stabilize to where, you know, I don't have to be there if I don't want to be, but, you know, that won't ever be the case, you know. So that's, you know, learning from you guys, for instance, would have been the veteran player on the team. And I would have been, if you weren't playing, Marcus, I would have sat right next to you, and I would have just, for 9 innings, asked you questions. You know, zero ego, just asking, right?
Right.
Because as you're standing here with me today or sitting here with me, I know 100%. You guys know so much more about this industry than I do. But I'm cool with it, you know, because I'm willing to have zero ego in this and say, I get to learn from y'all.
There is a point in my life where, you know, and I actually, when I look back at you know, my career in roofing, when I started, I had this like ego,
Swag.
right?
Yeah.
And I really think now looking back, it probably came from probably being a little bit insecure, you know, in like where my knowledge level was. You know, I felt like I was always the youngest, you know, person in the industry when I started, right? So maybe I was like a little bit insecure for that, maybe trying to pretend like maybe I knew things I didn't. And really, Marcus is the one that at some point like taught me, hey, it's like cool, like, you know what, like let's go ask these guys questions. Let's go be humble, accept it for what it is, right? And until, you know, I got into a different frame of mind and didn't have to know it all, you know, is when we really started to excel. I think that's one of the things I can say of, you know, the value of a partner is they help you see like other ways of doing things, other ways of thinking. You know, that's one of the things like Marcus did for me as a partner is like open my eyes to having that humility and, you know, taking in everything that you can from other people.
Yeah.
That's been
Absolutely
huge.
Yin yang, you guys kind of feed off each other. And honestly, I've seen other partnerships where you feel like you're talking to the same person, and I don't know. I mean, you've got a conflict is good, right? You guys are challenging each other, right?
Yeah.
In a way, it's respectful, but it's also in a way it's pushing each other to step back. And it sounds like you've had a lot of time similar to. I mean, dude, we used to see like baseball shrinks, right? So, I'm not joking.
Like literally like a shrink?
Shrinks for sports.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm interested. Tell me about this.
Like that was a huge deal. It started like when I broke in, like in 2007. Like we started seeing these people,
okay.
and I'm like, what are these guys doing? Why are we talking about like hitting and like why are these guys laying on the couch and having sessions with them? But what you just talked about, how you had to do some self-reflection and realize that, hey, I need to pop my ego a little bit. Well, the same thing was happening for baseball players. Like whenever you fail at something for a duration, all of a sudden your self-confidence is shot, right? Mm-hmm. And so now all of a sudden these teams were investing in doctors who would come and talk us on how to get out of it. Well, how do they do it? Well, we went back to, you know, positive mental imagery. We went to processes. We had things that layers that we could fall back on that would help stabilize, and it would keep the lows from being in longer duration.
Yeah.
So it would make the lows shorter and the highs sustainable for longer periods.
So instead of, for simplicity, you step it out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Mm-hmm. And you go back and you'd say, okay, they're in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where did I slip a little bit? What was my mistake? We see that in the sales field, right? All of us as our sales reps, right? You go through this like lull, and you're like, I was just on fire a week ago.
Right.
What am I saying something wrong? Well, without going back to your roots or going back to the basics, we get into this. What I do. I was just firing from the hip everywhere I go, and I don't know what my process was, or I don't know where I slipped up. Whereas when you go in with diligence and self-direction or company-focused direction, and we go, okay, what do we do on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Oh, we screwed up right here.
There you go.
Let's get this figured out.
What step was it that we went wrong? And it tends to make every other step kind of blurred, or
right.
You know, if you screw up 3, 4, and 5 won't fall into place like it should have anyway. So
yep.
It's that's why we keep saying the word process. Process is like on every locker room that you can think of in high school and college. You know, it's like it's about the process. Don't worry about results. Results come with a solid process that you stick to, abide by, and if bad times are upon you, stick it out. If you have to make some kind of changes, then you do it. But I mean, you usually get back up, you know, above water pretty quick.
Well, I mean, when you're in baseball, they keep stats on like everything. Damn near everything, right?
Like stupid stuff too.
Probably.
Yeah.
But it's all data, right?
Absolutely.
And I mean, it's not any different. I mean, baseball is business. It is a business.
Yeah.
And it's no different for us as business owners is to keep stats, right? Like maybe we don't know, I guess we normally call those like key performance indicators, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is one of those things that is, I guess what we would call a forward indicator, or
A leading
a
indicator.
lead, yeah, right, like a leading indicator, right? Like,
Mhm.
so you can tell, like, hey, we didn't do something. That's going to affect the results. So ahead of time before the results come, right? And it takes you years to find out like what the right questions are to ask.
Yeah.
Baseball, it's been around for centuries, right? Or
A century and
A century,
quarter.
right?
Yeah.
yeah, and they've done a fantastic job of making that sport and tracking things. And I think that they do it for a reason, in the same way that we
And
should be
and-
doing that as business owners.
And you see it evolving too, right? So like, you've got to be able to evolve. You got to be able to adapt, especially in our industry, right? With
100%.
the insurance game and
well, how much has changed for you this year? You know what I mean? Like 2020, you probably started this thing thinking like, this is going to be an awesome year. The economy was on fire. Things were great. And then like, you get punched in the face. And of course, what does everybody do when they get punched in the face is they want to cover up, right? So we're all now going from like, we're going to go do all this to like retracting,
right.
we're going into retraction mode. And, there's very few people that their first instinct isn't to cover up, right? And I think it's the same in business. So like, how did that look like in your market? Did you feel like that instinctive, like, oh my gosh, I need to go into like conservative mode, protect, did it affect your mentality a lot?
Yeah, absolutely.
And for how long?
Yeah. So, I mean, like you said, we came out of, typically the first quarter is a little slow anyways, and we're doing events, we're doing shows, and we came out of the IRE. Man, I was fired up. I couldn't wait to hire more guys and get them through training so that they were ready for storm season, April, March, April, May. But so, yeah, to your point, all of a sudden this COVID thing hits, and, March 10th or whatever, I think we went into a lockdown, right? So now I have this overhead as a business owner, and I felt wrong for, hey, I know we're essential, right? I'm essential. I get to go to work, but people weren't comfortable with that. So I had to adapt, make changes on the fly. And then I had to start thinking about, man, do I really need to adapt this for a duration? Because, is this going to be a thing that sticks around? No one knew at the time. So I'd say we shut down for a solid month where, we would have team meetings on Zoom. I would, join John Dye and talk to other people in the industry. But it was complete shutdown for around a month. And then it was kind of like, okay, this is getting ridiculous. We're going to do what we can. People still have needs. There's still storms. There's still claims coming in. We're getting phone calls still. But I never really went full on like retraining on my guys to adjust to COVID. I just, I brought them all in. I was like, listen, be respectful for other people and, try to just get a feel for the customer and their comfort level.
I hear there's like a new way of
Yeah,
knowing
man.
who
No one knows about
who's
it
comfort.
yet.
So what was it? The red bracelet means, that I feel like I want to have that distance, and the the green bracelet is going to mean like,
Yeah,
I'm very approachable.
let's shake
not too
hands.
worried.
Like,
yeah,
I'm not intimidated anymore. Or
I actually like this idea.
I do too.
Where did this come from?
I don't
saw
know.
I saw it on a news show, Fox Business. I guess it was yesterday morning. So I don't know what today is.
Well, how many conversations have you had where you're like, slipping into your old ways, and you go to give the handshake, right? And
It's
and then you're like, oh, wait,
Yeah.
elbow,
Yeah,
right?
elbow, or maybe I'll salute you from 6 foot. Like
Well,
it would be so much easier if they just had a red bracelet on. They're like, hey, dude, I'm not comfortable with you. Like,
Oh, yeah, it'd be like a visual indicator.
yeah,
Right?
But getting back to your point, though, yeah, I mean, we had to make some changes, and I think at this point now things are starting to loosen back up. Business is back to normal. And it was nice to have that little like break because, you know,
It gave you opportunity to work
Yeah.
on your business,
it
right?
allowed me to do that, look myself in the mirror type deal that we talked about, and then go through, and we had talked about a little bit of analytics and stuff, like where were we the most profitable as a business during, you know, the last quarter of last year and the third quarter, and okay, so let's focus more on doing more good of that, right? And
Right.
then let's eliminate, you know, whether it be handling a foundation, you know, getting involved with the house that needs a new roof, but it's based on foundation. Do we want to handle all that? No, it's too much. Like,
Right. Redefine
let's-
your niche, right?
yeah, let's refer, stay in our lane, and just really kick ass at that. You know,
Yeah.
like let's not try to do everything so good and oh, we're your one-stop shop. Yeah, we could, right, for the right client, but I think it's safer to just stick to what you're good at.
So not to switch gears on you.
Oh, we're good at that.
I know. Matter of fact, that's why I'm switching gears on you, is because we got our gears switched last night. We were talking about what's more important, culture or strategy, right? Like I told you, I saw this saying that says like culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? I like it. What are your thoughts? I mean, you've been in baseball where like strategy is super important, but what do I not know like about culture in baseball? Like, how does that affect baseball? Can you tell me any like relatable?
I think they're equally as important.
Okay.
Okay, so a good culture with no strategy is a bad business plan. Okay, and a great strategy with no culture is it's just not fun, right? So who wants to go to work when you are not enjoying what you do? I wanted to create in Precision a company that people wake up and they look forward to going to work, but they're also so confident going to work because they know that we have that strategy or that process in place that we're gonna lead you to success because upper management has taken the initiative and created this strategy. So I really feel like the strategy is on me and Ryan, and as far as, you know, putting the process in place to bring on new guys.
Mm-hmm.
The culture is as well, but that mainly means me vetting out who I'm hiring.
What was the story you were telling me about one of the teams you played for? Maybe when you went in there.
Oh, Tampa Bay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me that.
Tampa Bay was the team that, so I got traded from the Dodgers. I was drafted by the Dodgers, and I was traded in 2006. And I literally just switched locker rooms one day. Like we were playing the minor league team, so I played the team that I was on the next day. Really weird. But that was like my aha moment. Like, hey, I'm really just a number. Like this
That
is
had
my
to
job.
make you feel that way, right?
Absolutely.
Like-
Like I was like, oh, I'm part of a team. I'm part of this big loving culture, right? Well, at that point, I was like, shoot, man, I'm just a number. You know, I'm supposed to go out there and do a job. But anyway, in 2007, Tampa Bay Devil Rays, we're the worst team in baseball. We had tons of talent, but we were the worst team in baseball. I can't remember how many games we lost, but I made my debut in September of that year. And, you know, we went home after the season, and Joe Madden had just come on in 2007. That was his first year, taking over for Lou Piniella. Well, then Joe had his 3 months of downtime, kind of like we just had with COVID, or, some companies did. And he went back and he worked on the culture and the strategy the whole offseason. Well, we come back to spring training that year in 2008, and all of a sudden we went from worst team to first. We were the best in the East. We beat the Yankees. We beat the Red Sox.
What
We were
kind of
kicking
things
ass.
did he implement that would cause like that massive of a swing?
So aside from processes, right, or we called it small ball. We did a lot of small ball stuff. We were statistically driven to do the little things correct. And by little things, that means if for instance, it's the first inning and I'm the leadoff hitter and I hit a double, that guy behind me is being measured on whether or not he gets me from second base to third base.
Okay.
That's his only job, and we care about that because runs matter more importantly than yes, he could hit a home run maybe, right? But the odds of us scoring a run every time we have an opportunity with runners in scoring position is the most important thing. So we would do stuff like bunting. We would do hit and runs. We would go first to third on the bases. I mean,
Selfless
the
acts.
little selfless acts. Perfect. Yeah, like the batter might get a 0 for 1, but he's high-fiving everybody when he comes in that dugout because he just sacrificed himself and his own stats for the greater good of the team. And that kind of falls into everything, right? Like as far as a business.
Until you said that, I didn't realize how big of a team sport baseball is.
It's huge, yeah.
Huge.
We tend to focus on the guys who are hitting the homers, right? And yes, that's fun and that's important, but the good teams not only hit the home runs and pitch the perfect games and all that stuff, but they do the day-to-day little things correct. The back office things, right? They do the stuff that, you know, it's not sexy.
Right. Well, I mean, speaking of that, right? Like how much practice time goes into play time, right? Like you have the time that you're actually on the field in a game playing, but before that happens, so much time is spent practicing.
Yeah.
And I want to hear that stat, and I feel like that's something that really, you know, as business owners, we probably overlook, you know.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, you and I talked about that last night. If I was going to put a number on it, I'd say it's 80-20. 80% practice, process, practice, perfect it, practice some more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then 20% of that is done on the field. The hardest part is for a lot of guys is taking what they've practiced and being able to relax and trust that process enough to play and relax on the field. It's easy to be uptight on the field, nervous, you know, there's fans. But when you're really rock solid with your process and your practice efforts, you can't just practice, you got to practice perfection during your day. You know, baseball guys don't just show up at 6:30 and stretch and play a game. We're there at 2 o'clock. You know, our day is very regimented. It's, you know, like I said, I broke mine out to like every 10 minutes. I knew where I was going to be before a game started. And if I didn't do and complete all those steps, I was a mess during the game.
And that's the whole team. Everybody. Yeah.
Everybody creates their own process in baseball, right? In business, they kind of have it created for them, right? You guys are the pros, and you're teaching the young guys, this is our process.
I want to jump back real quick before we go too far into the next topic. When we were talking about the selfless acts and, like, you know, sacrificing the guy to get from second to third, and, you know, advancing the team. And for the audience, something like that we have found on our industry is that on the roofing side is we call that the more for more, right? So did the sales rep put the sign in the yard? Well, just because you put a sign in the yard doesn't mean that it's not going to help your coworker, right? That neighbor might call into the office and get a lead, and that lead might not actually go to you, unfortunately, right? Or did you ask for that referral and they referred our name, and maybe they forgot to refer your name? That still went back to the company, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, I guess, is that sacrifice bunt to advance the player might also be, did we put the sign in the yard and get the neighbor to call, and that went to your teammate, right?
Or did you do a good job? Did you clean up a property and make it look well? Like, so that guy across the street who's watching that roof go up and watching the whole process says, man, I really like it. And they call, and that benefits the team, right? That benefits everybody as a whole. That's that synergy we talked about, man.
Oh, yeah. I mean, from you know, looking at everything I've seen over the years, right, in roofing, I know that a lot of, you know, especially in the sales field, I think, you know, people tend to get very competitive and, like, self-focused. You know, it's very probably easy for that to happen. And we really saw, like, the biggest results happen when we changed that mentality into, like, we're a team, right? We're all pulling in the same direction. Like, we have a thread where, you know, all of the salesmen are on. And it's amazing to see, like, people jump in to help each other do something, right? Like, maybe they have a 3-story they need an assist on. boom, they'll just send a message out and somebody's jumping in to help, or they need something delivered. People are jumping in to help each other, and it just creates like a fantastic, like culture and thought process, for people to like have a mentality of excellence.
Absolutely. Let me ask you all this. I mean, so in your sales meetings, you guys celebrate the guys who are just killing it, right?
Absolutely.
100%.
And to me, that does nothing except. I mean, if I was the guy who wasn't being celebrated, I'd be like, oh man, I want to be up there one day. I want to be the guy who's. So it creates a competitiveness, but everyone feeds off each other in any kind of team sport or business. Everyone feeds off each other, and if Marcus, if you were killing it in sales, and you and I were both reps, and you were doing something that you just found out, man, I'm getting some rock solid leads right now. I'd be doing myself a disservice to not ask you how you were doing it.
100%.
Right. So everyone feeds, everyone works together, and that's when, that team that we talked about that went from worst to first. I mean, all of a sudden it was like a completely different environment in that locker room from year to year. I mean, Joe had a lot to do with that environment. Joe was the manager.
Mm-hmm.
But also our competitive nature that we had amongst ourselves, and like, doing the little things, and you can't be the guy who hits home runs every time, right? You got to be the guy who can still contribute even when you maybe suck that day. But you know what? I did one thing to get a guy over that got him in, that scored a run, although I wasn't the one who got the credit for scoring that run, or I wasn't the one who drove him in. But had I not done that, then well, Bobby behind me wouldn't have gotten him in.
That brings up a great point, because a lot of the time, whatever we're tracking are the sorts of things that people are going to respond to, right? And in reality, that should be one of the more important stats, I think, right?
Yeah.
This guy did this. Maybe he didn't have the home run, but it showed what kind of an individual you are and what you'll do for the team, because that's what win game.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
shoot,
Get a little heart in it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what it is.
absolutely.
Little taste from everybody gets a little taste of success, and they all pull together, right?
Yeah, and you guys know, you guys pour into people who are willing to jump on board and do everything they can for the company and for their fellow teammates. But then when and you've already probably come across it, there's certain guys that come in, or gals, and they're just not a good fit because of whatever. They're not willing to, toe the line.
Yep.
So in that, I've already seen this happen in business, is like that one, bad duck or odd duck or ugly duck.
Bad apple.
Bad apple.
Let's call it bad apple.
Bad apple. I like that. Good plug. Good plug. But that one bad apple can cause the whole chemistry of the team to drop sometimes.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
There's sometimes we discussed this a little bit last night, but like sometimes there's like one member of your team that like grinds everybody's gears a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think almost a lot of people's teams have that guy, but at the same time, if he's awesome at what he does, people kind of like hate him but love him.
Absolutely.
And he actually drives people to do better, or he or she does, and it's like,
those are the old salties, man. We called them salties on baseball. Like, they're just salty. Like, oh, we know everything, and let me show you how it's done, young buck. Those veteran guys.
oh yeah,
I loved them. I mean, even when they were just blasting me and making me wear a hoot, I had to wear a Hooters outfit through like Times Square and sing a song, and that's the rookie.
Was this on a
stuff.
bet you lost or what?
No, man. This is par for the course for all rookies in baseball. In September, you'll see it. Well, gosh, if we ever play again, but in September, all rookies, they're all up, and we typically would just drop them off in the middle of Times Square in some ridiculous outfits. But that was all because the salty veteran guys got together and like, hey, what are we gonna make them wear this year? Let's make them be Wizard of Oz, And we, it's just stuff that brought everyone together. But you got to be willing, as a rookie, to go ahead and eat a little bit of that, and smile and be able to make fun of yourself and, embarrass yourself. And that's kind of the same thing, right? What you talked about.
Hey, stories go so far. Marcus says this all the time. Like, when you look back at life, having stories with friends or coworkers or whatever, right? Like, that's what like ties everybody together.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes a strong team, is having those stories.
Yeah.
Yep. Good memories.
Right. So what advice would you give, since you went through such a like this huge career change, right? You were doing Major League Baseball, turned roofer. What advice would you give to somebody that is entering a new career? Let's finish it off with this.
Okay, so I felt like I had already fulfilled my passion in life, right? So baseball.
Yep.
And if you hadn't done that yet, find your passion, and if it's profitable, perfect it. But my advice is once you get started in something, don't just give up when it gets hard. Don't be overwhelmed by the amount of information that you need to know to be perfect in your process. Stick with it. Go through the tough times. Go through the COVIDs in your first year or second year of business. Like I can't imagine some of these restaurants who opened in January and now they're screwed. That type of thing is going to happen in life. But if anything, like, stick with it, man. Get through the mud and come out and be that bright, shiny apple. And, you're going to be, it's kind of, I don't know, just rewarding to know that, man, you look back and you say, God, I almost quit so many times. I almost quit baseball so many times before I did.
And let me ask you, like, why didn't you quit? What was it keeping you
in roofing or baseball?
No, in baseball, right?
In baseball,
okay. And roofing, I'm sure you've had times where you feel like quitting too, right? Like,
oh yeah,
like
all the time.
And I want to know, like, what was it that like stopped you from quitting? Like, some people have different ways of surviving, right?
Because I think if you quit, you get to label yourself. If you're able to reflect upon yourself, you failed. I have a fear of failure. I don't want to fail in anything.
Have you ever heard that? I think it was maybe Cortez or one of those guys way back in the day that come to conquer the Aztecs, right?
Okay.
The guy that finally did it, if I remember the story right, when he landed with all his soldiers, he burned the ships to say, hey, guess what?
We're here.
We're here. We're committed. We're not going home.
You got no plan B.
There's no plan B. Do you feel like there was ever a time maybe in baseball where you were like, I don't have a plan B. I have to, is that a driver?
I did put all my eggs in the basket, right? But at the same time, going through college, I had a degree. So I came from Texas A&M, where we have a strong alumni. So I could have jumped into probably any run-of-your-mill $60,000 to $80,000 job right out of college. That never entered my mind while I was playing. As soon as those thoughts about Plan B started coming up, I was 34.
Okay.
And that's when you know that you're on your way out. And that's when you know that, I did a lot. I played for a long time. I don't know how many games, how many at-bats, right? But I played for 14 years, and that's, call it 180 games a year.
It's a long career, right?
It's a long time, right? It's a lot of times to suit up and play and be injured and deal with injuries and come off the IR. And, so I felt fulfilled in the fact that I'm really, I had some self-pride in that I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. But I don't know. I don't know how we're going with this, but, I was able to walk away from baseball with my head still high, right? And
yeah.
I don't know. That's never going to happen for me in roofing, because this is something that I don't have to age out of. You could do it for as long as you want.
Well, now I think it's
it
probably something you leave to
legacy,
right?
Absolutely, if they want it.
Mm-hmm.
That cross that bridge when we get there, but.
Well, that might be kids. That might be employees. The people that help build it.
Yep.
Could be a lot of things.
there's a lot of big picture ideas in the roofing industry. And you know what? It's no one day for me is the same. So I really like that part of it. You know, God, I'd hate to go to the office every day and sit in front of a computer and know that you're there from 9 to 5 and have to do the same thing all the time, you know. So it's fun, you know, owning your own business because you're never doing the same thing.
Well, yeah, we talked about that last night, how like the the entrepreneur gets pulled in like every direction, right? Like one minute you're doing marketing, another minute you're doing sales, another minute you're, doing customer service or working on the system, the process, coaching the employee. Like you get pulled all directions, right?
Yeah.
Part of it.
Having to make adjustments on the fly.
Well, I suppose we can expect that dedication and precision roofing. And
it's here, man.
See it.
Yeah, it's ingrained in me, man. You know, at this point, when you practice something for so long, and that be it baseball, I'm just starting a whole new career all over again.
Not an option, right?
Right. Yeah. Put them all in one basket and just see where it takes you. You know,
Yeah.
And the biggest thing for me is doing things the right way. I know people will talk bad about you no matter what. You know, it just happens. But I want people to come and want to work for me and know that I want to do things the right way. And transparency is a big deal within our company. So.
Yep.
Well, Justin, thanks again for coming on. This was great.
Thank y'all. This was.
Appreciate it.
I got to drive up from Dallas.
You got to return to a storm, though, right?
I'm going back right now to get back to a storm that hit Central Texas.
Now you're real essential.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to College Station. Actually, that's where I went to school. So that's exciting. It's a ghost town, kind of like here right now. But and I appreciate y'all having me up here and doing the F-wave test and the ice ball test and the baseball thing, and then coming in here and doing this. I enjoy it, man. I'm gonna be in y'all's hip pocket for a while, just asking y'all questions and learning from you, because I think that's how we all grow.
Totally.
Yeah. We're here for you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
We're gonna learn something from you.
Yeah.
You're gonna learn something from us. Like that's what I think a great thing is is having resources.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
So absolutely.
And
enjoyed it.
For all of our viewers, you can find us anywhere that you listen to your podcast. So feel free to subscribe.